Okay. Well, today we're going to be talking about networking, and we've got three professionals joining us from BNI. So I'm going to let each of you introduce yourselves. Two are alumni of Northwestern, and one is joining us who's new. So Amanda, why don't we start with you since you're new to our group?
Yeah, I'm the newbie here. And so my name's Amanda Lanser. I'm a freelance copywriter. So I work with small businesses to help them tell their stories and spread their message, really. Most of my client base is based on the web. And so I do a lot of work for websites, blogging, email marketing, things of that nature for my clients.
Great. How about you, Justin? You want to jump in?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in the Twin Cities here in Cottage Grove. Played football and went to community college, and then I ended up at Northwestern. Played football there for 3 years. Got my bachelor's there. Have a strong, strong affinity for Northwestern, and now I work as a financial planner. And so the primary duties that I focus on is helping people spend money and save money. Just how efficiently can we do that? So yeah.
Great. And then Kheph?
Yes.
Who's going to help put this together?
Yeah, I am Kheph Rakhu, graduate with a maths degree, class of 2013 at Northwestern. My current employment is actually running a consultancy called HK Advisors, and we specialize in helping businesses that have business-to-business revenue models be able to transact with their clients. And what we do is we engineer those systems for them so that they are effective and profitable.
Great, thank you, everybody. And Kheph, can you just tell us a little bit about you and I had talked about networking just kind of as a personal conversation, and then you said, hey, I'm part of this networking group. Can you tell us a little bit about the group that you're all a part of?
Yeah, Business Networking International is a global networking, I guess you would call it a global networking group, but as Amanda affectionately stated, it is a marketing group. I mean, what it does is it allows for people to get a framework on how to have effective networking conversations, how to engage those conversations and navigate them flawlessly and with great effectiveness. And so, so there are about, what are there, 140 chapters here in the
just in Minnesota.
State? Yeah, just in Minnesota. And so we belong to the Victory Referrals chapter, and it's been, it's useful because we get to have conversations with folks from many different sectors, many different verticals, and it allows for us to sharpen our business acumen and be able to have those, like I said, to have those conversations effectively.
Awesome. Well, so obviously you're all three in a business networking group because that's central to what your business is and how it runs. But can you tell us, like for our students who are going to be looking for internships or looking for jobs, why is networking important for them?
You know, the number one thing is this: when you're coming out of school, you have a what, right? You just don't know who needs your what. And what networking does is it positions you to be able to identify the who's and be able to bring an exorbitant amount of value to the conversation. You know, coming out the gate, coming out of graduation, you have a knowledge base. So, you know, you have to find that person that is going to give you the chance or allow for you to earn a chance to further that knowledge base to garner experience. And that's what networking, that's how it can be effective for college students. And heck, that's what we're doing as professionals anyway. We have a what, we're trying to find the who.
That's a great way to describe it. I love that. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, I think just to like add on to that, I think everything that Kheph just mentioned is really succinct. He's definitely thought of that before. This is not the first time he said that, but especially with the generations that are to come, I think like the human flourishing is only going to be more and more important to come. And so getting out there and actually getting people to care about what you do. Like people don't know, or people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? Like that's what networking is. Like is just like getting what Kheph's talked about is like getting people to know what your what is, right? Like what is the widget, what is the thing that you're like uniquely positioned to help human flourishing with. And I think even our generation, millennials, and any generation after that, I think that's much more important to them. Like they're willing to potentially sacrifice dollars to go start social ventures because they've seen that work. And so I think that's why networking is so valuable, is because you can people can start to see why it matters to get to know you.
Yeah, and I think that it also offers you an opportunity to hone some skills that will serve you through your career and through your life, honestly. It's and like it is a muscle that you work out, just like if you were playing football like Justin, or for me practicing an instrument, right? Like that it's gonna feel a little awkward at first. it might be a little frustrating, you might be a little anxious about it, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes and the better you become at it. And what I found, and I'm sure Justin and Kheph, it's the same thing, is that what the skills that you're practicing while you're networking also bleed into like how you are at work, even how you are like when you're just talking face to face with someone just on a personal level outside of your career as well. So just learning how to be a good listener, right? Using your ears and your mouth proportionately. And I think Justin's absolutely right. Like going in with a helping mindset for networking can really, like that is where it changed for me, from going from being a little intimidated by networking to being really comfortable with saying, hey, this isn't as much about me like collecting business cards, right, to put in my hands, as much as it is about me trying to make connections and helping the people in the room with the people that I might know. And so sort of taking the focus and putting it there made it easier for me to be in a room networking and reaching out, or even just reaching out by email for that initial one-to-one conversation, which can be intimidating too, is just thinking about how are you helping the people that you're reaching out to rather than how they might be helping you.
Something else that I've noticed too is that it's also a great exercise for awareness. I think, very rarely do people understand the actual value that they bring to the market or to a relationship, and networking really forces you to become aware of and realize your value. Because if you don't have any, then no one's going to give you no one wants something for nothing,
right. Or
no
if
one wants
you can't articulate it.
yeah, which is important. And like I said, for us, at least for myself, I'll say that BNI has given me a framework to be able to express my value, because if I can't express my value, then no one wants to be my friend. So I just, I really focus on that. And it's been a blessing to be able to have a framework and a methodology that's proven and works. So find the way to extract your value, and be able to word it in a way that's receptive to whoever you're trying to get in contact with.
So coming from a student standpoint, again, they might feel like, if I'm reaching out to a professional, what am I going to have to offer them? So what would you say to a student who's sort of like, but I just need help. I just need some business connections. What am I going to have to offer someone? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I guess you never know who you know that they might need to know. Even if you're, 20, 21 years old, like you still have family, you have friends, you even may have colleagues. You have friends with families, right? Or sports teams. All of those people are the people that you're when you're meeting one-on-one with someone, you've got hundreds of people behind you, right, that are part of your network. And so there, you could approach it that way. But again, I think that there's also some goodwill among people in the business community, that we acknowledge that we have people coming up that we are going to eventually be hiring, right, or might eventually be taking our jobs in the best of ways. In the future. And so, there's going to be some that may just give you a hard no, and that's okay, but you will find the people that are receptive to sharing about their experience and their profession, and helping you along the way. At least that's been my experience, because I'm a transplant to Minnesota. I didn't have a network here when I started my business. And so I was in this sort of a similar boat where I was like, I don't know anybody here. But it just takes one person to say yes to coffee, or yes to a Zoom with you, or even just yes to answering email questions to get that ball rolling.
Yeah, one thing, not to like do like a Jesus juke or anything, but I think like that's like the world view in which I look out of the world, and partly has been shaped by Northwestern's like you think about Paul, Timothy, and Barnabas, right? Like Paul charged Timothy with raising up leaders, and Timothy charged Barnabas with raising up leaders, right? Like we're not just meant to go out and raise, like we're not only meant to go out and like seek advice, but like we're also meant to go give advice. Like you have advice to give no matter where you are in your career, because you're coming in at a different perspective. Like everybody, it's kind of cliche, but cliches are cliche because they're true, right? Like you're unique. Like you have a unique perspective on the world. You were raised uniquely. Like nobody has the same childhood as you, and so you do give a unique perspective. You just have to be confident in yourself and willing to share that unique perspective, because I can speak for myself. Like I was very timid, even though I'm an extrovert. I was very timid on giving my perspective because it felt like it might not have been warranted. But like just like be engaging, but like you'll have an opportunity to give your perspective. Maybe don't shove it down people's throats, but like when it's warranted, like when you have the opportunity, when somebody asks your opinion, like give it. Don't be timid about it. Give your opinion, because there will be those opportunities.
I will say, as a generation that's more online than some of the people you may be networking with, you'd be surprised at the questions you might get about like, how does the Facebook work, right? So yeah, you have things to offer. And I would also just say, when you're reaching out, make sure you're being gracious, right? Like be polite, thank people for their time, acknowledge the fact that you are taking their time, right? And so if you set expectations for how long you want to talk, if it's 15 minutes, if it's half an hour, and then stick to that as well. That can go a long way.
Just to add on some really great insight that Amanda and Justin have given, you only need to know 3 things more than someone else to be deemed an expert. So you got to really stand on what you know and be confident. Even if it's a small data point, if someone else doesn't know it, that can bring value to that person. I think also to add, awareness is extremely important. Leverage, career and development. I definitely did when I was in undergrad, because there are so many different tools and resources available to increase awareness about who you are, right? Let's say, for instance, strengths finders. That for me has been foundational in my identity as a professional. So utilizing tools like that help to hone in on who you are, what your gifts are, and how to best position yourself for success.
No, that's a great point. And also probably alumni networks too.
Yeah.
In addition to the career networks. So.
Yep. And I can invite Amanda into this too. We have just created career communities around here at Northwestern.
Oh, cool.
Where we have industry professionals and alumni. We've got over 300 now who have said, like, I'll help with career advice. I'll help with informational interviews. I can help with the job posting. So we're trying to facilitate those connections as much as we can.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we're excited about it. So how would a student get started with networking? Just like from the logistics, if I've just heard about networking for the first time, what do I do now? What's the first thing to do?
Yeah, so I guess for me, like it starts on campus, right? Like you may not think about it as networking, but you're networking all the time when you're interacting with fellow students, right? Whether you're in class and getting to know people like the first week of class, or if you're doing your extracurricular activities or running a club or something, all of those skills that you're honing, right, practicing in those clubs are going to serve you as in networking. And then like as far as recently graduated, if you know what career you're stepping into, so you're going into graphic design, for example, seek out, do some Googling, seek out some of the trade or industry groups, just read up on, online on the trade magazines as well. They can sort of point you in the right direction. Even just Googling like top graphic design firms, Minneapolis could get you down a path for finding people to reach out to, connect with.
Yeah. I'm not sure how the landscape is laid out here, but for myself, as a native of St. Louis, one thing I was extremely grateful for as an undergrad was being a part of the Regional Business Council's Young Mentor Program. So finding mentor programs are a great way to do so, because a lot of times they'll have soirees where you're able to rub elbows, shake hands, and kiss babies with professionals in the area. And it helps, right? I mean, for one, you get to make yourself visible in the community. And, if you have done your preparation of what your what is, it's really easy to be able to position that in front of folks and gain some credibility. And a lot of times that can give some traction to new relationships and new opportunities.
Yeah. And I'd be remiss to not say that visiting BNI chapter is free. So if you want some good practice, twice. But that's 280 times you can visit every chapter in the state.
There you go.
But there's also, things like chambers also have free networking events that you could attend, or even not networking events, just going to an event and sort of just being in the audience or participating that way. And then that takes the pressure off of you having to work the room, as they say, but still get in front of meet some people.
I did hear the question. So I think that I would say build deep relationships, just with people that are in your class. Just build, like in your dorm room, specifically for Northwestern, at the Billy, during chapel, like all of those things. Build relationships that will last longer than your 4 years at Northwestern. Just like be really intentional about building deep relationships, because that out of that flows the rest of life. And you're just going to be grateful in more ways than just like networking, but just like life. And just, I think that's what that's where I would start if I was giving advice to somebody in college. So,
you know what else too? Church. For me, as a transplant to Minnesota, that was the first avenue that I tackled. I really started tapping into the relationships at the church I attended, and it was actually how I landed my first job through that type of relationship. So,
and I'm a little surprised of all the answers, and they were great answers. Nobody mentioned like LinkedIn or a networking platform like that. So, are you just beyond LinkedIn, or are you thinking that LinkedIn's sort of like a basic, or is it not even worth mentioning? But I'm just curious about that. That didn't come up in anyone's response.
I think you can use LinkedIn as a means to do some of these other things. That's not the end. Like, you don't do networking. For me personally, I don't do networking on LinkedIn, but it's an avenue to meet somebody, to further that relationship, so I can meet them on Zoom or whatever. So that I think that's a means, not the end.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's how I use it too, Justin. Like for me, like LinkedIn is actually like my follow-up to meeting people in person, right? And so like you may connect with them on LinkedIn after you meet them, and then use that to keep in touch. Like Justin was saying, building these deep relationships that last long-term, being connected on social media obviously would be a good way to do that. But of course, there are people that use it to find connections as well and reach out and are really proactive about connecting with someone as an ins to get to the meeting as well. So people use it both ways. I personally use it for follow-up.
I think a lot of people have become linked lazy. They know that, first off, LinkedIn is starting to slowly become a very saturated place in terms of communication. I agree with Amanda and Justin that it's a great means of follow-up, but it's also a great way to posture yourself and to list out, really display who your background and who you are and things of that nature. But using it as a primary source of networking, I wouldn't advise it, because everybody in the world right now is. And FaceTime, face-to-face time, picking up the phone, things like this are just skills that are transferable. And it actually will take you much further than spamming someone's inbox.
That's true.
That's great. That's great. So can you guys maybe share a story or two about how networking has affected your career?
Yeah, I've got one if you guys don't have one at the ready. This is one I put some thought into. And you guys have actually probably heard this story, so I'm sorry if it's like, here goes Amanda again. So I joined BNI. It's a BNI story. I joined BNI 2 months after I started my business full time. And one of the very first people I met in BNI was a web designer. I've done exactly one project with him, and that was way back in 2012. And that one project for that web designer was for a client who was a business consultant in Minneapolis. And I helped her with her website copy, did some writing for her, and then did some proofing for her, and got, became kind of a close relationship because she was her business. And so her content really needed to reflect who she was. And then through my connection with that client, she introduced me to a colleague of hers who I had a couple of one-to-ones with, went to some of his some networking events that he was hosting. And then through my connection with him, I met a marketing consultant that I have now worked for more than 4 years. She's one of my best, longest term, strongest clients. My calendar is like pretty much full, a lot due to her and the relationship that I've built with her. I've even been to Colorado with her and her team as like a work trip, and even been white labeled under her business and working different chamber networking events as well. And so for me, that's like my most powerful networking story. And so in BNI, we call that a tier 1, 2, 3, a tier 4 referral, which means that it was a referral from a referral from a referral from a referral that you can still trace back to the original. And so for me, that's the example of how networking works, right? Like you do have to kind of track it to see that that's how you're getting your business, but it definitely has payoffs. And just know that the person that you are sitting in front of today may not be the person that's going to hire you, right? But they may open the door to the person that might hire you.
You gotta be careful.
Sorry.
Well, that's a great point, Amanda, that it's not necessarily I'm going to meet this one person and they're going to open the door to the job right from there, but it might be I meet that person, they refer me to someone else, that person refers me to a third person, and it's down the line. So that's
and this took 4 years. Like I should also say that was between 2012 and 2016, more or less. So yeah.
I think that story really highlights an attribute that's extremely important graduating and entering the market. You have to be resilient and you have to have a lot of grit. There's a lot of rejection that's going to happen. There's a lot of no's. Getting used to it, the sooner you accept it and get used to it, the more traction will get your way. And I guess this kind of segues into my networking success story. I was able to, and oddly enough, via LinkedIn, I was able to land one of my first consulting gigs that landed a $30,000 project. And
nice.
And that all came through tapping into different associations that I was a part of, having those one-to-one meetings, doing the follow-up. I mean, it was that probably was 6 or 7 different people that I had to get in contact with to eventually land to this client, which offered me this opportunity. So, I guess when it comes to networking, and if you expect success from it, you have to dare to be gritty.
Mm-hmm. And know yourself. Like I think you guys have mentioned this before. Like know what your skill set is, and be confident that like you will have people give you advice, and you're just like, yeah, okay. And just know that like to be confident in your skills, to take the advice that you think is valid, and you can let the other advice go. And that the person, if they say no, that they're not the right person for you to be networking with, right? Or like that wasn't the right idea for you. And so there'll be other opportunities that arise.
Yeah, I actually have had quite a few success stories from LinkedIn, but they've started on LinkedIn, but it's moved off of LinkedIn, which is where I think the success happens for me. That's why that's the primary way in which I use it. So there's just been a number of people that I try to post on LinkedIn 3 to 5 times a week. And so just continuing to put out valuable content that people will read and engage with has led to just some really cool conversations and just really throughout the entire country. And so I think that's, I would say, like my greatest success story, just because I've built a ton of, again, long-term, lifelong friendships and business relationships through calling somebody or Zoom calls, but they started on LinkedIn.
Great. am interested in the fact that we talked about some examples that took several months or took 4 years. So for a student who's going to be in college for roughly 4 years, when should they get started with networking?
Now.
You already have.
Don't waste any time. 4 years goes by really quick. Don't take it for granted that you have time. The reality is that you do not have time. And the reason why that's the truth is that the market is really competitive. So you have to start posturing and positioning yourself now. And I know that gives a lot of anxiety, but I mean, it's the real truth. You have to start networking now. Start, at least if you're not ready to network, at least find a mentor.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, like, even just change your mindset about it, right? Like, I think that a lot of times, like, we can talk about the difference between like networking and a network, right? Like, so network, like a lot of people are like, networking is something I do it as a prescribed time. I have to go somewhere, if it's Zoom or somewhere else, right? And it's like, I'm networking for half an hour and then I stop, right? Like, sure, right? Like, I guess there is some networking that you do that way, but you know, you might be better served by changing your mindset about it a little bit and just be like, my interactions with the people around me right now is an opportunity for me to network in the sense of, you know, getting a little bit deeper about the relationships that you have with them, right? Like, who do they know? Like, what are they interested in? Be interested in that person, right? So like, you are like, if you start as soon as you can, but you don't have to seek out events, right, to network if you're like 18 and just in your first year at school. Like, start networking with your fellow students, alumni, your professors, right? All of them may have building relationships with them now. Those are the people you should be networking with, because they might lead you to these more career oriented relationships later.
No, it certainly is a lifestyle. It's a mindset.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
I think, you're networking regardless if you're doing it or not. Like, there's a passive element to it, but there's also an active element, like kind of double clicking, so to speak, on what Amanda was saying. Like, I totally agree with that. Like, you're doing it regardless of if you're doing it or not, because networking is your network. So the people that you branch out and get to meet throughout school, I think that is networking, right? And that's what I'd say. Like, this conversation kind of has threads throughout it that you'll be able to link some of these answers back to previous ones, but like having deep relationships, asking good questions, like figure out how to ask good questions, because that's going to give you the ability to really understand the why, like people's why and what people are like interested in. And then you might be able to like solve that problem that they're interested in. And in turn, that is like networking, right? Like that is like you're maybe the liaison, or maybe you're the middleman or whatever. But I think that's the biggest thing, is just ask good questions, build deep relationships. I think those are some of the things that I would just like encourage. I know I didn't do that well when I was at Northwestern, so I'm like, please just do it. Like, again, this is kind of informed by like the worldview that I have. Like, a biblical worldview is just saying, like, we're designed for community. Like, I think that's why this topic is so powerful, is because like we're designed for community. Like, we're not designed to be alone. So get out there, be in community, get to know people well, and like get them to know you well as well. So when those things happen, like that's where human flourishing happens. And then you're able to, you're again uniquely positioned to help people, because you have a unique skill set that nobody has. Like, you are better at something. You are the best person in the world at something. Like, you are, but it might be this super, super niche thing. That's totally okay. Like, Amazon is only like, they're the most profitable company in the world, and they have 1% of the entire population using their services. 1%. Like, you don't need a lot of people to like make money. You don't.
I also say too. Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
Go ahead, Kheph.
No, I was going to say also serve. Find opportunities for community service, for volunteer work, because those are also great methods of networking. They just how can I say this? You reap what you sow, right? If
Yeah,
you sow service,
absolutely.
you'll reap success at some point.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it really, like, all networking is a buzzword for building relationships. That's all it is, right? Like, it's a
Right.
buzz, like you see it and like you read about it and it becomes kind of its own thing, but at the core, all it is building relationships and making connections.
Mhm.
So
I love that. How about when students are first reaching out? What's something that they should say, shouldn't say, kind of frame that initial outreach?
I
yeah.
think something that somebody told me once that I've tried to use, and sometimes I don't regret it, but I'm like, oh shoot. But so to say it, it's like when I was reaching out to former bosses or former people that I wanted to enter into maybe like a more formal mentorship or whatever, and just like reaching out and for those types of relationships, I've said in the past, like, hey, I'd love to buy you lunch. Like, they're far more successful than me, and you're trying to give them something so that their time isn't wasted. So I would say, like, just giving, like trying to give something to them, even though they probably don't need it and they're probably gonna say, no, I'll buy you lunch. Like, why would you buy me lunch? You're in college. That's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes it hasn't worked out and like they actually took me up on the offer. I'm like, ah, shoot, I was hoping you would say like you were gonna buy me lunch, but like that's just the price you pay, right? Like sometimes it works out in your favor and they buy you lunch, and sometimes you pay for the lunch. But I would say like reach out and give them something. Like if you're actually interested in them as a person, if they have a website, read the website. Like come up with very specific questions that you can ask them about their life, that like do some research on them, like Facebook, LinkedIn, their website, their business. Like, why do you want to meet with them? And come up with specific questions. Don't just come up with like generic questions like, oh, I'm just trying to expand my network. It's like, well, yeah, but like why? Like what's
Give them
your
a reason
what's
for reaching out.
exactly?
Yeah. I think
Oh.
those are, I'm like, yeah, that's it.
Definitely, yeah. Reach out with a purpose.
Yeah.
People are tired of having their ear bent and coffee shoved down their throats and all this other stuff that people use as introductions in their outreach. And have a purpose and really, I'm an advocate for having a problem solver's mindset. Like what Justin just said, make sure you do your due diligence, and as you're doing your due diligence, with the knowledge base that you have, what problems can you solve? And people like to have their tails covered. And so if you identify an issue and you have insight on how it can be solved, then you've now made a way for yourself and you're providing value.
Yeah.
Relationships, any relationship, if you think about any relationship you have, you expect some type of value out of it. Otherwise, it's not a valuable relationship.
There he is.
New join.
Hey,
An extra person has joined our network. Excellent.
Networking right now.
Yeah. Never too young to start.
He doesn't want to be alone. He just wants to keep crying. So yeah.
That sounds
This
like
is fun.
networkers. No one likes to be
Hey.
alone at a networking event, even if
This
they're
is what I'm doing
pre-verbal.
Tuesday, so I'm okay with it. If you're okay with it.
It's all good.
that's perfect.
And I just was down to the last couple of questions. Any kind of last words of encouragement or advice or anything else to, reach out to our students? Be sure you what?
Oh, yeah. I think be sure, like you guys were saying before, like be sure to be relatable and be sure to be gracious. Right. So like make it like figure out like if you are targeting specific people that you want to meet, like do your research, learn what they do and say, hey, like I'm an aspiring graphic designer. I don't know why I'm using graphic design, but it's just easy. It's coming to my head. But I'm an aspiring graphic designer, just like, and it looks like you've built like a really great career. I, admire the work that you've done. I was wondering if I could have 20 minutes of your time to talk to you about it. Right. So even just like a little, little praise can go a long way as well for folks. And then I know, Sarah, that you asked about timid networkers too. And so I wanted to share some resources for you in the chat about that as well, because I actually had a really specific one to share. So I'll put that in there so you can share that as a resource.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, networking really works if you are introverted. So all the because I am an extremely introverted person. So, but being able to develop relationships and build rapport and trust is something that I'm naturally good at. So networking works for me. For some folks, this could be a secondary means, but for me, it's my primary way of engaging the market, getting to know people, developing relationships. So, if you are a shy and reserved person like myself, which I know Amanda and Justin probably wouldn't agree, but if you
Like, this is
this
secret
is not the
about
same
you.
Kheph. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am extremely terrified of people. But nevertheless, you have to get out there. And if you do, find somewhere, even think groups like Toastmasters, right?
Mm.
Which is going to allow for you to perfect your communicating ability, because if you can't
Mhm.
communicate and convey what you know, what you feel, etc., then no one else will know. So
Yeah.
practice your communication skills, find community, and serve. Give, your time is a currency, so spend it, invest it.
Oh yeah.
Love that.
Last things that I would say, I have a lot of things that I could say because I believe so deeply in relationships. And again, that's the heart of what like my life is, what I want my life to be. Is just like caring about other people. And so I think that's what I would say, like, get interested about people. Like,
Mm.
again,
Mhm.
coming from like the Christian worldview, like the Christian worldview would say, like, you die to self to be more Christ-like. And if that's true, then we should be seeking others and their good ahead of our own. And so, how do we do that? We do that by asking them really good questions, even if we're not getting that reciprocated. Especially if we're not getting that reciprocated,
Mm.
because that shows that you care all the more. So just get
Mhm.
interested about people, learn, ask really good questions, and just, yeah, I would say, like, that's the heart of the whole any business at all, any sort of business. You just have to really understand what the client wants, to understand how you can solve it. And so how you do that is asking questions. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter what industry you're in. So I would say, like,
Yeah.
yeah, do
And
that.
that's advice for whether or not you're a client, like you're looking for clients for your own business or trying to be hired by somebody else, right? Because everyone is looking for a solution to their challenges. And so how are you providing that?
Yeah. And that's why I don't think it matters if you're introverted or extroverted, because we're
Mm.
all designed for community. We're all designed to be
Yeah.
in a relationship with other people. And so whether you're extroverted like myself or introverted like Kheph, like, you're going to be just fine at networking because you just do it the way that is most
Yeah.
comfortable for you.
Yeah. And guess what? People are like you that are networking, and you will find
Right.
each other too.
Yeah, and definitely come visit us.
Yeah.
The door is always open. We have plenty of tools and resources that definitely encourage and help people along the path of their networking career, because that's what it is. So, the door is always open.
Because what
Yeah.
else are you doing at 7 a.m. on a Thursday morning? If you're in school, nothing. I know the answer to that is sleeping. So get up out of bed.
Yeah, so if you want to share your chapter, maybe you can send that in the chat also, and I'll link that as well for our students. So this is
Oh, sure.
excellent. Any last words? I appreciate this so much. This is such a good conversation, and I think we've got a lot of issues that maybe students don't think about in terms of networking. It means I go to a networking event and I shake a bunch of people's hands and I try to grab business cards. And I love that you all took such a different approach and a deeper approach and a relationship building approach rather than this transactional view. So last chance, any final words you want to share?
I guess this is an appropriate channel to say this, but definitely put the kingdom of God first. The reason why is the word has plenty of wisdom in it that can distinguish you in the marketplace. And if you feel like you're lost or you're not sure where to go, for myself, I always start with the word. I find some scripture that can either illuminate or anchor me in whatever I'm going through in terms of doubt. So that's my parting word.
That's great.
Yeah.
And Justin, can you introduce our new network partner here?
Yeah, this is Tate. He is 8 months old. Yeah, so he joined. He just woke up from his nap and he said, "Hey, Dad, I don't want to be alone. I'm feeling really clingy today, so you can't set me down."
I've got skills I need to share with the world, he says.
That's right. That's excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate this conversation so much, and
Yeah.
can't wait to share it with our students. So
Thank
Thank you for the
Sarah.
opportunity.
thank
Take care.
you. All
Goodbye,
right. You too.
Sarah.
Bye. Bye, Justin. Bye, Amanda. Bye, Kheph. Bye, Tate.
Bye-bye.